Yeah, I think we're live on YouTube as well.
Just 1 minute. It's still loading up. Sorry.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
We're live now. You can start.
All right. So, hey everyone, we have about 135 people. So, welcome to the event. So, today with us, we have a very, very special guest. It's Sanjay Mehta, who is the founder of Mehta Ventures and 100x VC. And he was inducted in the Hall of Fame as an outstanding angel by TIE. He has invested in over 150 startups, in fact, ranging from early stage to even pre-series or Series A. Some of his notable investments are in Oyo and Nuo and Coolberg. And it's really crazy that we have someone like Sanjay Mehta here today. So without much further ado, Sanjay, I'll just pass it over to you and hopefully we'll have a great session.
Hey, thank you, Shreyans. Is this recording or right now you're not?
It is. It's getting recorded. It's being live streamed on YouTube as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks. So, guys, the topic today we are going to work across is on how to start a successful startup. So I'm going to assume saying that most of you guys are either at idea stage or thinking about a startup or in startup, but trying to pitch to investors. So it's more like a beginner lessons. Basically, after this session, it will help you, get your strategies right in terms of how do you engage with investors. What are the odds of success that you will be able to get across while you are pitching to VCs or investors for capital. And main thing is how to create a startup which is a sustainable business, right? It's important to ensure that your business is sustainable and grows across in leaps and bounds. So basic validation of idea to raising of funding. So we'll cover all those aspects. So entrepreneurship is really tough. It's not for faint-hearted. It takes huge amount of boldness when you start taking this route, right? Most of us, even in the schools where we study across, they flaunt across saying that we have got 100% employment, right? They never flaunt entrepreneurs from the school. So still entrepreneurship is not as glamorous, but it is not for faint-hearted for sure. A lot of perseverance, hard work, hustle is required. Patience. I mean, it takes at least 8 to 10 years to build a very successful company. Capital, you need to engage with investors, bankers, even if you are bootstrapped. A lot of sleepless nights. I mean, I have seen across within my portfolio quite a lot of them really toiling across hard work which they do across and failures. Yes, a lot of rejections when you're pitching to investors, trying out new ideas, iteration. So before you succeed, there are tons of stuff what happens. I mean, you read about those glamorous headlines in the newspapers, and while building a startup, it's very, very different. So I'm just trying to give you those risk challenges which typically founders go through. So what is a startup basically? I mean, it's a young company founded by one or more entrepreneurs, which develop very unique or differentiated product or service, and they bring it to market. And the first challenge which typically startup has is to prove the validity of the concept, right, to the potential lenders if it's a bank or investors. And that's how typically you start across. I mean, for me, the way I see across is startup is an avatar, a version of a modern day inventor, right? Typically, who are taking that risk of creating something new, right, and challenging the status quo. So idea is a startup is like a modern version of an inventor. So the way to begin across when you are thinking about creating a startup, right? Start thinking on the problem side, right? What problem you will be solving and why you will be solving that problem. Your first point when you start thinking about entrepreneurship is to start thinking about a problem, right? Do not start thinking about a solution because, oh, I have studied Python, let me build something on Python, right? So it's all about what are you going to solve. I know how blockchain works, so let me build something on blockchain. No, it's always going to be what problem you are going to solve. It's all about start thinking about the problem side, the demand side, which will be there, right? So you need to, I mean, personally, if you talk to any startup founder who has been successful, they start with a great story backdrop, which means that either they have faced the problem, how did they source the problem, how did they come about this whole idea. Always there is a story, and it is so fascinating to understand those story. And once you know the vision, the purpose, right, why that founder is building that company, it gives you a lot of confidence. And for me as an investor, that is one thing which I love across big time, to hear those story, right? So you need to have that basic ingredients in terms of what problem, how did you come about that problem, right? So steps to evaluate the idea, right? If you get a great idea, how do I evaluate whether this is a good idea, bad idea, ugly idea? Should I be moving? Should I be risking my career on this? So you need to work upon that. So first is the problem accelerating, which means that is this problem for many people, like large amount of consumer or users? So find out whether this problem, what is the rate of growth, how big the market is. Next, try to discover about the urgency, why this problem needs an immediate attention or a solution, right? Is this a pain, right? So what's going to be that immediate solution which people are looking? Or what is the frequency of that problem? How quick, how fast these problems are occurring with the consumers, right? Is it habit forming kind of stuff? And then, does this problem require large amount of capital? If you are a startup, it's all about growth, raising capital, right? So does this require large amount of capital or resources to grow across? And then once you have all this stuff in place, then you start thinking across, does a user have a willingness to pay for this solution, right? And if the buying or this solution becomes part of compliance or mandatory requirement, it's a bonus, right? So I mean, that's in nutshell in terms of how to basically evaluate an idea, right? In if you get an idea before you start working on it, these are initial steps, and I'll share more ways, right? Let's say, let's take an example of a food delivery startup. Now, does user have a motivation to get food delivered at home from anywhere across the city? Does the app have an ability to for the user to order food, do the payment, track the delivery, and finally the trigger point in terms of frequently, how frequently they will order across, and is this a frictionless user experience? To sum it up, idea has to have a problem which is large, growing, and needs immediate attention, and which frequently needed solution which is there, right? So this is just a basic example how you look at the various ideas. So in nutshell, you need to find a painkiller. What you are out there, is trying to create that painkiller that can offer immediate relief, right? It's a need to have solution, not a nice to have solution, right? When you have vitamins, which means it takes time to form an habit. I mean, it's a long period to create those habit forming stuff. Investors fund businesses and not products, right? So typically you need to have that right business model, and painkillers are a great places where you can really influence and growth and outcome. Avoid being a gold digger. This is one very important you know tip or an advice which I like to leave it with you. One should not be building a solution and then find out a problem which matches the solution what they've built across, right? Do not try to be a gold digger, because there is a hot trend. Oh, blockchain chal raha hai, crypto chal raha hai, let me build something on crypto because that is in trend. No, that's a short term. It never works. You will not have passion around that problem, right? You will never be able to scale. So you need to ask your first questions, themselves. Who are we building this product for, and do we have enough information and understanding on data or market readiness for the solution. So that's how you need to start thinking across. So my summation of the first part, what I spoke across, do not start with ideas, start with problems. Once you have a large problem, and then start building your solution around it, right? It is not uh, easy finding some random idea to build across. You should have that idea where you want to work for that idea for next 10 years, a 10 years horizon, right? If it is just like some fad, you will leave that fad very quickly, right? So just try and see across those ideas which you like to build for next 10 years. One thing which at early stage you should do is find a mentor, right? Ideas are very fragile, so avoid going to those naysayers or critics. you know See, idea, if you're building something for future, breakthrough, disruptive, it's going to be tough for people to visualize, and most of them will say, "Arey, ye to nahi chalega," right? And pitching to someone who does not understand entrepreneurship, they will critic and kill your idea. You will be discouraged. You will start become like a doubter, and idea will get shelved even before it is started. So talk to other startup founders, angel investors, VCs within the startup ecosystem, and that can help you nurture and validate your idea. So first thing is, onboard a mentor for your idea. Having an idea is one thing, but having a legitimate business plan is another story, right? Idea ho gaya, sab kuch hai. Yes, it's a great idea. Now, can I build a business plan around it? How do I build a business plan? What are the things that I need to have within that? So you need to constantly validate your idea with a startup business plan. So idea is, you need to investigate two things to validate an idea. Why no one has done this idea before? Ideas are nobody's monopoly. सबके पास दिमाग है, सब लोग के पास सोचना होता है. So they will be thinking very similar ideas. How can I deliver that idea better, which is existing right now? And once you have that answers, work on a business model where how much finance would be required, what capital you will need for 12 to 24-month journey. Create a business plan on paper. And by end of this exercise, you will find good results and whether you want to pursue this idea or not, right? So just try to work across in your notepad, saying that what kind of business model, how will you make money, how much money would be required. I mean, there are fantastic ideas. Let's say, for example, you have a great idea saying that, if I can go across and find some, water on Mars, can I be another Elon Musk kind of stuff? Great idea, but do you have that resources? Do you have that plan? Right? So my idea is, great ideas also need capital, right? So please work on a business plan before you start thinking and giving your time to those ideas. So business plan gives you a significant advantage. Once you have a validated business plan, start looking across for investors for capital. And business plan is your first thing which you need to do across before you, start working on startup. Because you would be, while many of you think across, oh, I'm a coder, I don't have to pay anyone, I can start across, and there is no cost. Time is the cost. If you are using your own time to build an idea, it's going to be costly. So step one, how will you start the business, right? What will happen? What's the reason why you are building this startup? How did you come up with the name? What got you excited saying that this is a great opportunity and you would like to work across? That's your first step to create a business plan. Next is, why now? What is it, the timing, right? Are there any regulatory changes which is getting huge advantage? Like, for example, electric vehicle, a lot of regulatory changes are happening. Consumer behavior change. Now, for example, edtech, huge consumer behavior change. People are learning online, right? Fundamental innovation, like for example, GPS was a fundamental innovation. Like Uber or Ola would not have happened if GPS would not have happened, right? So fundamental innovation, technology maturity, which means over the time how technology has grown across, right? So if you look in blockchain, it is right now at a nascent stage and it is growing across. What will be the right time to get into? Driverless cars, great technology, but the maturity is still happening across. Rapidly growing market with eager customers, huge opportunity when you see across a growing market. So, you know, timing is very critical when you start across, right? Step 3, establish a buyer user profile and a business model. Very important, right? Who is going to be your buyer? Like, who is the target person for your product? Why do they love the product, right? What problem does your business solve for them? How are you going to acquire, right? What's going to be your acquisition strategy? How will you price the product? What is the unit economics, right? Unit economics is all about, say, you how do you acquire the customer? What's the cost of customer acquisition? And then you have your profit, and what's going to be your lifetime value of that users, right? And what are those KPIs that you will be tracking across? So just in nutshell, work across your buyer profile and work on that journey till creating a business model out of it. So how will you make money? Step 4, future ahead, right? What are the milestones you plan on hitting next? What is going to be your go-to-market strategy? What is your distribution channel? What are the KPIs which you will change as you hit your milestones? What's your product roadmap? What's your hiring plan? How much capital would you need for your startup? So all this, if you note down, suddenly you have a proper, clear picture, a vision about how your startup will be looking in 12 to 24 months down the line. And subsequently, it gives you that thought process whether this is a worth idea to pursue or a startup to build across, right? And step 5, potential investors to raise capital. You can raise across friends, family, angel investors, venture capitalists, like a lot of sources initially at the seed stage where you can raise across capital. Seed funding is integral for getting ideas off the ground. So you need to have that first round of funding to give your idea a life, right? Initial capital lagta hai. Unless you get that capital, your idea will not fly off the ground. You need those backers. So 100x.vc, we are a first check VC fund to invest across. So we use India Safe Notes, which is a very simple way of funding a startup. And what we look across while we are investing across is founding team, market size, opportunity. Is the team capable enough? How large is the market? What is their business model strength? What is the IP? What's the unfair advantage? And we do our internal math, a conviction which is like saying that can this startup create that 20x returns, right? So that's how we look into from 100x VC perspective. What investor invests at seed stage is going to be basis on hope, right? And not on performance metrics. At seed stage, you don't have revenue. It's a pre-revenue company. It's at idea stage. So investors invest on hope. Ideas are very fragile, right? Needs lot of nurturing with seed capital, and that's where 100x works with startup founder to help them, one, get access to investors for further round of capital, and plus education on how to build business. So seed funding and why, without seed funding, vast majority of startup ideas will die. The timing and the manner in which you raise the seed funding often determines long-term success, right? High velocity startups, right? Some startups get great momentum and they will need to burn capital to sustain their growth before they get into profitability. And capital not only allows startups to live and grow, it's like a competitive moat, right? In that sense. So hiring key people, marketing, sales, everything. And the goal of the startup founder who is raising money is to get a business plan and raise money till their next fundable milestone, which is next 12 to 24 months kind of runway. So whenever an investor funds a startup, it implicitly believes that that startup will be able to raise the further round of funding, right? So if there is a not a potential to raise the next round of funding, they will not invest. My belief is everybody either should do a startup or work for a startup. It's an amazing experience. It's the enthusiasm is unbelievable, and that whole journey, it's unparalleled, right? It's like you are creating something, working in a very different environment than that so-called 9 to 5 corporate jobs. So I believe everybody should do a startup. So when raising startup capital, finding a lead investor is the first critical step, right? Securing that lead investor is vital for 99% of startup fundraising rounds, right? If you can find a lead investor for your startup, your ability to raise money becomes very, very high. Many of the good deals don't get funded. Number one reason is investor rejection comes saying that why no one else is funding this company, right? Most VCs, angel networks, all of them want to know who your lead investor is. A lead investor is a social proof to others, right? Saying that this is a fundable deal. Family money, a lot of our rich kids and there is family money, but they don't buy you the lead investor status, right? You should have third party validation. Your lead investor is your first check, and very few in India wants to go first. So securing that lead investor is very, very important. A lead investor is your marketeer, right? They work hard, they help you raise funds. You can work on your business while they help you raise funds and open up their network, connect you with investors, right? So what is the role of a lead investor? One, to negotiate terms, hire a law firm, handle the paperwork, advise you, take a seat on the board, make introduction connections, everything what is going to be required for you to become a scalable and sustainable business, right? So that's where the lead investor role comes into. And how do you choose, right? uh, Find a lead investor you can trust, verify their credentials. You also need to verify whom you are taking the first check. uh, check their interest. What is their domain expertise? Does it match your need? Find a lead investor which is a brand, right, and successful investment history. An investor which is accessible. Somebody will give you money but no mentoring, it doesn't work across. So you need a coach, a mentor, right? And find a investor which has a risk appetite with a long term horizon and investment. So it's very, very important. 100x plays a role as a lead investor. We do the first check, funding through iSafe, make you part of a cohort. So class 1 funding, we did it across in 2019, and we are at class 05, which is open right now. We help our portfolio company, get VC investment ready, scale their business planning with growth capital. And we got something which is called VC Pitch Day, where we showcase all our portfolio company. And we just have a single year mission in terms of simplifying funding and unlimited mentoring. So lead investor is a magic key to successful funding or building syndicates. As simple. So you should have a lead investor that can establish your startup and with credibility into the market. How do you create a elevator pitch? This is a small exercise. You need to fill up the blank and practice across. Just fill this blank and you can create an elevator pitch which you can use across to help pitch to various VCs and even for customers, right? I intend to offer, fill in the blanks, what is your product or service to a type of customer, so that they will be able to insert the benefit and value to the customer. That's a template for creating an elevator pitch. Convert product into business. I mentioned earlier, right? Most of the startup founders try to pitch product, and investors fund business, right? So if somebody comes to me and tells me saying that I built a 128-bit encryption, for me it's like, so what? So मैं क्या करूँ, right? तुमने 128-bit encryption बनाया. Then it comes across the security is unbreakable. So what? Right? So finally, when a founder pitches to an investor saying that it can transfer valuable credit card data safely without theft, that's where it is created a business, right? Somebody will pay for that, right? So how do you convert product to business is very important. So on closing notes, learn the art of investor conversations. Build your network with startup founders. Solo founders typically have tough times. Always try to build a team around it. Have a co-founder. We run co-founder dating events. Look up on 100x VC website, and you can join for co-founder dating events. Work hard on your deck and content design. So very important to work hard on that. And it requires patience, right? And if you have factor 2 months, typically you multiply that by 3 for your runway in terms of getting the funding kind of stuff, and ability to digest rejection, right? And move quickly to next investor fundraise, and rears, right? And I've seen across, the path to success for startups is highly variable, right? There are multi variables, but successful startups have a lot in common in that sense. So, uh, you know, pitch at 100x.vc, that's the email ID. Class 5 applications are open. Happy to review your ideas and pitches. Write to us on pitch at 100x.vc. Thank you so much. I think I'm done with my presentation and a talk, and happy to take a couple of questions if there are any.
Yes, Sanjay. Thanks a lot for the presentation. Love the way you sort of summarize the entire startup journey. And even you guys, people who have ideas, people who think they're building a good startup, you guys can, mail them at pitch@100x.vc and see if your idea is fundable enough and maybe get your first lead investor. So Sanjay, I have a couple of questions. I took it from the chat. Maybe we can address it for the next, 10, 15 minutes and then wrap up the session. So you spoke about finding co-founders, right? And a lot of people ask this question about how do you find the right co-founder? How do you know that this is the person whom I can trust and build a startup with?
So first and foremost, try and see across working or getting co-founder from your known or inner circle, right? Somebody whom you have studied with, or you have spent some time, or you did job with, or somewhere some interaction where you had engagement, because this is a long-term journey. You want co-founders where your chemistry is right, right? End of the day, yes, everybody wants to build something larger, but that journey has to be fun, enjoyable. People should be able to share their challenges, ideas together, right? So entrepreneurship is a tough journey, and it's always too great to have the co-founders where marriage of minds is there. People can understand and give that backup to the other co-founders. So that, I mean, yes, it is tough to find co-founders, as such, but over the time, if you start working on an idea, and if you see other founder or whom you are pitching across is equally passionate about that idea, then I think it's a great marriage, right? And to make things right, you know, there is a saying, right, with every business, saying that if a founder start thinking who is right, then there are trouble. But what is right for the company, then there is a growth, right? So always founders or anybody working on an idea or building a startup need to think across what is right for the company. It's not about who is right, right? And start building on that idea to a scalable business.
Great, very aptly put. So after the co-founder journey, it's about building the early team, right? Getting a small team together. So how do you go about that? Like, what are the initial steps to finding a good founding team?
My take is, at early stage, seed stage, typically, if there is a big hire which happens across where, you are spending money to do a big hire without the product or customer, it's a big challenge. I think most of the time hiring kills the startup, right? Initially, it should be founders and the key team which should take that mantle of getting initial customers. Even if it's a free customer, get some customers using. Are they logging in daily in your product? Are they using? Even if it's free, that's fine, but there has to be traction. Are you building something which people want? And first prove that, and then try to see across. Your first versions are always going to be challenged, and what founders do is they start thinking day one, saying that agar mere ko million user aega, if million user come to my website, it should not crash. That's okay if it crash. That's a validation that people want to log into your product, right? Don't spend money on those heavy infrastructure, buying that, people saying that, and nobody turns up. right? As I mentioned across, right? It's okay to fail. You are not State Bank of India that tomorrow news will break out that your site has crashed. That's all right. I mean, so scale customers first, products later. So hiring, I'm not a fan of hiring as much. I'm more about creating that first team of people who are equally passionate about what founders are creating, right? I mean, it's important to have that alignment of mind on the goal. While each one, it's okay to have different views, but final goal has to be singular.
Perfect. It's all about, sort of building a scrappy product, getting the initial set of users, and then ultimately, thinking about things like
Absolutely.
that.
I mean, after 5 years, you will always laugh back. Oh, was this the shitty product what you
Yeah,
started with? And that has been case for every unicorn, right? They started with a shitty product.
correct. Um, so there's this huge skepticism about sharing ideas. A lot of people are like, I'm going to keep the idea secretive. It's the next big thing. I'm not going to share it with anyone. What do you think of that school of thought? A lot of people are like, should I share the idea with others or not?
It's absolute nonsense, Harish. It's absolute nonsense. I mean, more you share across your idea, more you will be able to gain perspective, more learning. When you pitch to investors, it's like a free consultation, right?
Correct.
Check across, what are the objections. Like if an investor is asking more question on your team, it's they are doubting your ability. If the question is more on your market opportunity, they are not confirming or validating that market is big enough. If they are questioning on your product, which means the IP is very poor and there's no moat over there. If they are questioning on business model, they feel that you can't make money on this business, right? Idea is, you need to share ideas. If you don't share, you will never get feedback. And secondly, ideas are not the final success, right? Execution is. You may have a great idea, everybody is doing into the same. It is all about execution. And usually it is not the first idea which becomes successful. And we have seen in past that, it is a second or the third guy into the that same space which typically makes it big kind of stuff. So I'm a strong believer that you should be sharing your idea. Yes, you should be picking the people who are right, who will give you that advice to move forward, and give you the right feedback, right? Idea is, yes, you should be sharing. If you're not sharing, then this is a wrong notion which somebody has.
Great. Yeah. I think sharing ideas is a great way of validating it and seeing if it's, something that people want actually or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another question that we have got is, I think they're confused that there are a few startups like, Cred, Zomato, which don't make profits. I mean, they've been in losses for quite a while. So they're trying to understand what's the philosophy behind investors backing such companies.
Uh, See, when startups are growing across rapidly, investors are funding them for growth. And whenever you are investing into that early stage, there is going to be that period before they start making money. So to give that idea a stretch or a life or a validation for 18, 24, 36 months, investors pour in money. And when they see a momentum, more money flows into it, and the scale happens. Now, does this so startup valuations are not dependent on profit or loss, but more dependent on growth. How fast you are growing across, what's the scale, what's the velocity at which you are accelerating your user growth, the traction, right? And there have been so many cases where uh, companies have been in losses for 10, 15 years, but given fantastic outcomes for investors. So investors continue to fund across those loss-making companies, but these are not loss-making at unit economics. These are loss-making at overall because the company is growing rapidly. They are investing in new customer acquisition. There's a lot of money which is going in supply chain, building that, the infrastructure, the rails, the foundation for this company, for this startup to have that sustainable, scalable business over a decade. And that's why, if you look into it, one of my slides I mentioned across, think across 10 years, 20 years with this startup as a founder, right? Would you love to build something which you will work across for next 10 years? Then only begin that startup.
Fair enough. I think Amazon is a good example of that, where they had losses for a lot of years, but they almost captured
Still
the
they
entire
have.
globe. Yeah.
They still have. And even Facebook, I mean, there are
Hmm.
tremendous examples, but let's not get into those big places. I'm just
Hmm.
saying investors understand that before the companies get to profitability, they need to burn across. But yes, if there is no momentum, no customers, there is no scale, investor will disappear, no valuation and no
Correct.
success.
Hmm. I think that sort of brings me to the next question, which is a person debating between bootstrapping versus raising their first round. So, what are the factors that people should consider when they want to bootstrap their business without any external capital versus raising their first round?
I mean, there have been many examples of bootstrap business. There is nothing wrong about it. It is where you are growing organic, slow. There is no urgency over there. You do hard choices when you are doing bootstrap, right? It makes you do take that hard choices. Vis-a-vis venture capital is all about, can I, what a company which has done in past, possibly in 20 years, can I try to crunch that time in 2 years? And I might be doing 20 mistakes and failing across, but that one or two which works across takes me ahead of that existing company by leaps and bounds, right? It is basically focused across on high growth, velocity, acquiring customers, doing consumer behavior change. And that is only possible when you get venture funded. Now, if you look into examples of uh, US, where maximum unicorns are there, and listed companies which has been listed in last 10 years, you would see 80% of them have raised venture capital, right? So most of the success has come across through venture capital, because VCs or investors has a mindset of fast growth. They are happy to back the idea with capital, crunch the time to success, and they are happy to lose money if the startup fails across. I mean, I wouldn't say happy, but they are okay to lose across money, right? It's part and parcel of their investment thesis, right? So the way I will see across is, if you don't like uh, investor relationships, if you don't like answerability, if you don't like high speed growth, then don't take money from investors, because this investor money comes with strings attached. You are answerable, there is a responsibility, and you are accountable. So yes, no investor wants to run your business, but they would definitely like to know what's happening in your business.
Correct. I think once you spoke about this concept of living dead in a business where you don't have any pressure, you don't have any motivation to do things, and the business sort of becomes stale. But when you're venture funded, you have that small push to do something and then sort of move
No,
forward.
absolutely. Investors drive entrepreneurs in many cases.
Hmm. Correct. So there's this another interesting question, which is, a lot of these people are engineers, but how do they come to know about the business world? Like someone has asked, are we supposed to learn something about commerce? How do we go about the business side of startups when we are in the early stages?
That's why we at 100x.vc talk about capital or investment plus education, right? And we spend a lot of time helping startup founders work on their business plan. Question, many times we see a backlash from our own portfolio. Why are investors asking this financial question? Why are they so much hung up about unit economics? How are you going to build across? What's going to happen? Founder salary, all these questions. I mean, people are great at coding, saying that अरे code बोल मैं लिख लेता हूँ, and they don't like those math questions. But mind well, tomorrow if you want to become a unicorn, a large company, this is unavoidable. You will have to learn finance, you will have to learn how legal works across. These are all the part and parcel of becoming a large business. And more early in your life cycle you accept this, more successful you will become across. So finance is something which is unavoidable, because at the end of the day, everything will come and start and end at finance, right? You're raising funding, it's all money. You are giving some salaries to people, it's all finance, right? And if you don't have that understanding of finance, the business, it's like your first class ticket to failure if you don't understand finance.
Any good resources that you would like to suggest people to get a better understanding?
Join 100x Entrepreneurship Gurukul.
Okay.
We have this not for profit, no equity, nothing. It's just a program where it helps you understand business model. You can do the pricing, unit economics. There are multiple sessions which are there.
Got it. Any way through which people can join in? Is it there on your website?
Yeah, it's there on 100x website. It's a not-for-profit initiative by 100x to help entrepreneurs learn across how to build a business.
Awesome. Sounds great. So this another question is, how important is having a tech co-founder? Because there are a lot of these people with ideas, but they don't know how to actually build it out. When it comes to technology startups. So what's your opinion on that? How do you find people who can actually build it?
Hugely valuable. These are the tech co-founders, CTOs. They have huge value. You need to have a co-founder which is a tech-driven. Outsourcing and tech is a big no-no for any investors. They would like to have a CTO which can build across the idea, and it's software is eating the world, and everybody knows that, right? Everything in today in the world is driven by software, right? Be it across manufacturing, be it across food is like, every delivery, supply chain, everything you look upon is driven through software. So I don't think so anything is untouched right now. So I believe a tech co-founder is very valuable.
Fair enough. I think, if you're a technology startup, I think having one co-founder who knows tech is super, super
No,
critical.
even you are, if it's a technology enabled, let's say if you are a QSR, right? Quick service restaurant,
Yeah.
you are selling food. I mean, nothing more than that. But still, you need tech. How are you going to manage delivery? How are you going to give them customer experience? Ordering, payments, everything is tech.
Yeah. It's getting into almost every single industry. So it could be travel, could be automobile. True. Another question that people have asked is, how does 100x look at student startups? Do they have any biases towards them?
We have a positive bias. We look upon and welcome student startups. So please write to us, and we have a positive bias. We believe that your early or young founders have a different perspective of thinking, and we would like to learn from them how the world will be in next 10 years, and we bet on the future. And who better than young founders who can help us see the future? So we welcome your ideas. So write to us.
Awesome. Sounds good. So if any one of you guys are working on startups, then do send over your pitch deck at pitch@100x.vc. And if they find it super interesting, then maybe you can sort of get on a call and they'll take a look at your idea. I think that's all the questions that I have for now, Sanjay. Thanks a lot for joining and really appreciate it. And we have around 185 people in here, and I'm super optimistic that they've got insane amount of value. And a lot of people are asking for the slides. So guys, it'll be on the YouTube channel of BlueLearn. And at the same time, it will be uploaded on 100x's Gurukul. So you can go to their website and access it anytime. Again, Sanjay, thanks a lot for joining in. Really appreciate it, and have a great evening. And thanks,
Sure.
guys, for joining in.